The fluorescent lights of the studio hummed their usual morning tune, that barely audible frequency that television people stop noticing after their first week on the job. Stagehands moved with purpose, adjusting camera angles and checking audio levels. The famous round table sat center stage, polished to perfection, waiting for the day's guests. It was a Tuesday morning in New York City, and for the production team of American Voices, it looked like any other show day. They had no idea they were about to witness something that would be replayed and discussed for years to come. At 69 years old, Margaret "Maggie" Hollister arrived with the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing left to prove. She stepped out of a black SUV at exactly 8:45, 15 minutes earlier than her call time, a habit she had developed back when she was a girl in rural Missouri. On her family's farm, you didn't wait until the last minute to feed the cattle, and you didn't keep people waiting. That work ethic had followed her through 5 decades of stardom, through 42 #1 hits, through the kind of tragedy that would have broken someone with less steel in their spine. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress, her famous silver hair swept back in a style that was both practical and glamorous. As she walked through the studio doors, she greeted everyone by name. She asked the security guard about his daughter's soccer game. She thanked the makeup artist before the woman even introduced herself. This was not calculated charm. This was simply how Maggie Hollister moved through the world, treating everyone she met like they mattered. She was there to promote Open Road, her latest album, a deeply personal collection of songs reflecting on a life fully lived. She was also there to talk about her work on Rising Star, the talent competition where she had spent the last 8 seasons mentoring young singers. Her publicist had called this a victory lap, a chance to celebrate an incredible career while looking toward the future. The show's producers had promised a friendly, upbeat conversation. Wanda Morrison, the show's longtime host, opened the segment with genuine warmth and admiration. She had known Maggie for years and considered her a friend. "Our next guest is someone who needs no introduction to anyone in America," Wanda said, her voice filled with affection. "She has sold over 80 million records. She has starred in her own television show. She has won every award this industry has to offer. And she continues to shape the future of music as a coach on Rising Star. Please welcome the one and only, Maggie Hollister." The applause was immediate and thunderous. The studio audience, a mix of New Yorkers and tourists, rose to their feet. Maggie stood and placed her hand over her heart, that simple gesture of gratitude that had become her signature. She waved to the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as she could, before taking her seat at the table. "Well, goodness gracious," she said, her Missouri accent warm and unhurried. "Y'all are going to make an old woman cry before we even get started. Thank you so much for that welcome." The conversation began exactly as planned. Bethany Winters, a younger co-host who had grown up listening to Maggie's music, asked about the inspiration behind Open Road. Maggie's face lit up with the enthusiasm of someone who still loves her craft after all these years. "This album is different for me," Maggie explained, leaning forward in her chair. "It's about looking back at the roads I've traveled, the people I've loved and lost, the lessons I've learned along the way. There's a song called Missouri Sky that I wrote about my daddy and that old farm. It's a thank you letter to the places that made me who I am." Bethany nodded thoughtfully. "That's beautiful. And speaking of mentorship, you've worked with so many young artists on Rising Star. What's the most important thing you try to teach them?" Maggie smiled warmly. "When I started out in Nashville, I didn't have anyone to show me the way. I walked into rooms where people told me I was too country, then walked into other rooms where they told me I wasn't country enough. I learned by falling down and getting back up. So when I work with these young people, I tell them to stay true to who they are. The world will try to shape you into what it wants. Don't let it." The audience was captivated. This was the Maggie they had invited into their homes for 40 years, the woman whose voice had been the soundtrack to their lives. The other hosts asked follow-up questions about her tour, her family, her thoughts on the current state of music. Everything was flowing smoothly. Then Linda Crane leaned forward, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Linda had been a co-host on American Voices for 12 years. She was known for her sharp tongue and her willingness to ask uncomfortable questions. But what happened next went far beyond tough journalism. It was something else entirely. "So, Maggie," Linda began, her voice carrying that distinctive edge that regular viewers knew meant trouble was coming. "You've been doing this country music thing for what, 4 decades now? Don't you ever get tired of singing about the same things over and over? Pickup trucks and dirt roads and heartbreak. It all seems a little, how should I put this, limited in scope." The question landed like a grenade in the middle of the table. The studio went completely silent. Bethany Winters looked down at her notes. Another co-host, a political commentator named Patricia, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Wanda Morrison's smile froze on her face. Maggie's expression remained pleasant, but those who knew her well could see the subtle change. A slight tightening around.
My hand shook as I unfolded the paper beneath the tablecloth, hidden from Clara's view. The handwriting was shaky but legible, written in blue ink. "Your daughter is in terrible danger. The man she married has ended lives before. 3 women that I know of. He marries them, takes everything. Then they die in accidents. Check her bank accounts, check her insurance policies, check everything he's had her sign. They move fast once they start. There's an address below. Come tonight if you want the truth. Please, I'm begging you. Get her away from him now." Below the message, an address in Usera in the southern part of Madrid. My blood turned to ice. "Papa?" Clara's concern was real now. "You look pale. ¿Estás bien?" I looked up at her. My daughter, my only child. The person I'd protected from every danger I could imagine since the day she was born. She was smiling at me. That same trusting expression she'd had at 5 when I taught her to ride a bike. 3 women. They die in accidents. Outside, Javier was pocketing his phone, straightening his jacket, that practiced smile sliding back into place as he reached for the door. The paper weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. 26 years in construction had taught me to recognize when a structure was about to fail. That moment when everything looks fine, but every instinct screams danger. This was that moment. I looked at Clara's trusting face, then at Javier returning through the crowd, his smile perfect and practiced. Every instinct I'd honed over 56 years told me we had seconds, not minutes. "Clara," I said, my voice cutting through her thoughts. "We need to leave. Right now." She blinked, her smile faltering. "What?" "Papa, we haven't even—" "Now, mija." I was already standing, pulling cash from my wallet and tossing it on the table. Through the window, Javier's silhouette shifted under the streetlights. He angled back toward the entrance. 20 seconds, maybe less. I leaned across the table. "Clara, do you trust me?" She stared at me. "Papa, you're scaring me." "I know, I'm sorry, but answer me. Do you trust me?" Something in my voice made her really look at me. Not the casual glance of a daughter humoring her father, but a deep searching look, like she was trying to see past my eyes and into whatever had just shifted inside me. I watched memories flicker behind her pupils. Every scraped knee I'd bandaged, every nightmare I'd chased away when she was small and afraid of the dark, every promise I'd kept from her first bicycle to her college graduation. 26 years of being her safe place distilled into 3 seconds of silence. She nodded slowly. "Sí, sempre." "Yes, always." "Then stand up and follow me. No questions. Not here." She glanced toward the glass doors where Javier's silhouette moved under the streetlights, phone still pressed to his ear. Then back at me. Confusion battled loyalty on her face. A war fought in the space between one breath and the next. But my daughter has never gone back on her word. Not once in her entire life. "Okay," she whispered, reaching for her purse with trembling fingers. I scanned the restaurant with the practiced eye of someone who spent decades studying buildings and their weaknesses. Main entrance? Impossible. Javier would see us the moment he turned around. Kitchen exit? Too many staff, too many questions. Side door? Locked, with an alarm I couldn't disable without tools I didn't have. I needed distraction. I needed chaos. I needed something that would punch a hole in this elegant, orderly room and let us slip through unnoticed. There it was, the red handle near the restrooms, fire alarm. 26 years in construction meant I knew the consequences intimately. False alarm fines, easily several thousand euros. Potential criminal charges if someone investigated too hard. Lawsuits from the restaurant for lost business and trauma to their wealthy clientele. The kind of trouble that could follow me for years, cost me my contractor's license, maybe even land me in court. But my daughter's life was folded in the paper inside my pocket. 3 women were dead because no one pulled an alarm for them. And outside, a predator was finishing his phone call, about to walk back in and sit across from my girl like nothing was wrong. Sometimes, being a good father means breaking the law. Sometimes it means lighting a fire to stop a worse one. Stay close, I said, gripping her hand hard enough that she'd feel it through her skin, through her bones, down into whatever part of her still remembered being small enough to hold. Papa, what are you... I didn't answer. I pulled her toward the wall, weaving through tables where diners laughed and drank, completely unaware that their world was about to shatter. A waiter in a crisp white shirt tried to step in front of me, hand raised, mouth opening to ask what I thought I was doing. I moved past him like he was furniture. The fire alarm box was mounted on a pillar near the restrooms, its red surface gleaming under the soft ambient lighting. Standard Spanish commercial building code, pull station, glass panel requiring a firm pull, the kind I'd installed in at least 50 buildings over my career. I'd never pulled one myself, never had reason to. My hand wrapped around the cold metal handle. For half a heartbeat, I hesitated. I thought about the paperwork, the fines, the police reports. I thought about Elena and what she'd say if she could see me now. Probably something about me finally losing my mind after all these years. Then I thought about 3 women who trusted the wrong man. Women whose families never got the chance to pull them out of danger. I pulled. The alarm exploded into sound, piercing, relentless, the kind of noise that bypasses rational thought and goes straight to the lizard brain. It was deafening, a mechanical shriek that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Strobes flashed, stuttering white light across the elegant dining room, turning wine glasses and white tablecloths into a nightmare tableau of freeze-frame horror. For 1 second, everyone froze, spoons suspended mid-air, conversations cut off mid-sentence, faces turned towards the sound, confused, disoriented. Then panic, chairs scraped backward in a screech of wood on marble. A wine glass toppled and shattered, red spreading across white linen like blood spreading across a bandage. A woman screamed, not in pain, but in that primal way humans scream when the safe world suddenly isn't safe anymore. Men shouted, children cried, somewhere a baby wailed. People surged toward the exits in a single desperate wave, pushing, crowding, stepping over dropped purses and fallen jackets. The elegant restaurant with its €30 appetizers and hushed conversations became a stampede in seconds. Beautiful, beautiful chaos. I pulled Clara into the flow, shielding her with my body from the worst of the crush, steering us toward the glowing green exit sign over the emergency door. Around us, voices shouted in confusion. ¿Qué pasa? Fuego? Salid, salid. And the alarm kept screaming, relentless, giving no answers, only fear. She didn't have to hide. Later at the police station, an investigator pulled me aside. That live stream, he said. That was smart. 200,000 witnesses means this case is bulletproof. No deals, no silencing, no disappearing evidence. It's all out there. I looked through the window at Clara, giving her statement, her face pale but steady. She caught my eye and managed a small smile. She's strong, the investigator said. She's her mother's daughter. The trial lasted 8 months. Javier Mendoza and his mother, Consuelo, were convicted on all charges: fraud, conspiracy, and complicity in 3 deaths. The live stream, with 200,000 witnesses, made their lawyers' jobs impossible. Every attempt to cast doubt, to question evidence, to shift blame, it all crumbled against the wall of public record. Marta's parents sat in the front row every single day. Christina's sister flew in from Barcelona. Lucia's brother, who hadn't spoken in 2 years, stood up when the verdict was read and simply said, "Gracias." Amanda testified in open court, the scar on her neck visible to everyone. She didn't hide. She didn't flinch. When the defense tried to break her, she held steady. Afterward, she hugged Clara for a long time without speaking. Some things don't need words. 6 months later, the cafe was small, tucked into a quiet street in Vallecas, the kind of place where the owner knows your name and your coffee order. Clara and I sat by the window, watching afternoon light spill across the tables. You're doing it again, Clara said, stirring her café con leche. Doing what? That thing where you stare at nothing and think about everything. I smiled. Old habit. She was different now. Not the girl who'd walked down the aisle at San Geronimo, glowing with trust and hope. Not the woman who'd fled a restaurant with her heart pounding. Something in between. Stronger. Quieter. More careful with her trust, but not broken by it. The therapist said that was progress. Amanda called, Clara said. She started volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching self-defense classes. Good for her. She asked about you, said you're the reason she's alive. I shook my head. She's the reason she's alive. She crawled off that mountain. She stayed hidden for 2 years gathering evidence. She testified. I just pulled a fire alarm. Clara laughed. A real laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in months. You did a little more than that, Papa. A young couple walked past the window, arms around each other, laughing at something on a phone. Clara watched them for a moment, her expression unreadable. Does it get easier? She asked quietly. Does what get easier? Trusting again, believing people, looking at someone and not wondering what they're hiding. I thought about it. 26 years in construction had taught me that every building settles, every foundation shifts, cracks appear. You don't fix them by pretending they don't exist. You fix them by seeing them clearly and reinforcing what matters. I don't know if it gets easier, I said, but it gets different. You learn to trust yourself first, your instincts. That voice that says something's wrong. You listen to that before you listen to anyone else. Then, slowly, you start letting people earn their way back in. Not all at once. Brick by brick. She nodded, turning her coffee cup in circles. Like building a house. Like building a home. There's a difference. Outside, the afternoon crowd drifted past. Students with backpacks, abuelas with shopping carts, a man walking his dog. Ordinary life continuing. I'm glad you pulled that alarm, Clara said. I'm glad you followed me. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Always, Papa. Siempre. Here's the thing. They don't tell you about danger. It doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks charming. Sometimes it looks like love. Sometimes it wears a perfect smile and says all the right things and makes your daughter happier than you've seen her in years. That's the trick of it. That's how it gets in. I spent 26 years building homes, learning to spot weaknesses in walls and foundations. But I almost missed the crack right in front of me because I wanted so badly for everything to be solid. I wanted Clara to have her happy ending. I wanted to believe in the smile, the fast romance, the perfect son-in-law. Wanting something to be true doesn't make it true. That old man in the restaurant, Antonio, he taught me something. He'd lost his daughter to these predators, but he didn't give up. He watched, he waited, he gathered evidence, and when he saw another father about to lose his child, he acted. Not with a weapon or a threat, just a folded piece of paper and a whispered warning. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes one person saying, trust your gut is the difference between life and death. And here's the other thing. You don't have to fight alone. When we walked into that registry office with a phone streaming live, we weren't just 2 people anymore. We were 200,000. We were witnesses. We were a crowd that couldn't be ignored or silenced or made to disappear. Technology gets a bad rap sometimes. People say it isolates us, divides us, makes us stare at screens instead of each other. But that night, a screen and a signal and strangers watching from their living rooms saved my daughter's life. 200,000 people became our army. 200,000 people made sure justice couldn't hide. So here's my message to you, whoever you are, wherever you're listening. If something feels wrong, it probably is. That knot in your stomach, that nagging doubt, that voice that whispers something's off, listen to it. Don't let wanting to be nice, wanting to be polite, wanting to believe the best in people, silence that voice. It's there for a reason. And if you see someone in danger, say something. Leave a note. Make a call. Be the stranger who changes everything. You don't have to be a hero. You just have to care enough to act. Because evil grows in silence. It thrives in shadows. But when you shine a light, when you make noise, when you gather witnesses, when you refuse to look away, it crumbles. That's the truth I carry now. That's what I learned from a folded paper and a fire alarm and 200,000 strangers who refused to let my daughter become another name on a list. Trust your gut, shine a light, and never, ever underestimate what a father will do to protect his child. Trust your instincts. That uncomfortable feeling in your gut is not paranoia. It's protection. Evil hides behind charm and smiles, but it cannot survive in the light. If something feels wrong, act. Make noise, get witnesses, and never be afraid to be the one who pulls the alarm.